Zhang Beihai, guardian of fire under the deep sea. On the tragic epic of escapism in the three-body problem, Father's Will, a cosmic mission of a military family. In Qingdao military port in 1990, 15-year-old Zhang Beihai stood on the deck of a retired destroyer. The salty sea breeze lifted his father's woolen coat, and the old general pointed to the lighthouse in the distance and said, "Beihai, remember, the duty of a soldier is not to win every war, but to ensure that civilization does not perish." This sentence is like a bullet forever embedded in his spinal cord. 1. Strategic intuition in the blood. The blood memory of the Sino-Japanese War of 1894. The family motto of "waiting for the spring," engraved by the great-grandfather before the sinking of the Dingyuan ship, made the 4 generations of the Zhang family bear the fate of failure rehearsal. Childhood enlightenment in the nuclear submarine cabin. When he was 8 years old, his father took him to dive into the Great Wall No. 211 and explained the logic of second nuclear counterattack in the green light of the sonar screen. The deepest deterrence is hidden in the deepest seabed. Unsent suicide note. Before his death, his father wrote, "The future is in the stars," in Braille, and this tactile code became Zhang Beihai's spiritual stamp. 2. Silent monologue on the night of the establishment of the Space Force. When General Chang Weisi announced the establishment of the first detachment of the Asian fleet, Zhang Beihai quietly left the room amid applause. He stood on the observation platform of the space city, scanned the red spot of Jupiter with a high-power telescope, and suddenly chuckled. The storm that had been raging for 400 years was very much like the despair and hope surging in his heart. 2. Assassinating the old aerospace. Pushing open the door to heaven with the devil's hand. In the corridor of Beijing Aerospace Hospital in 2007, the sound of Zhang Beihai's leather shoes was as precise as a second hand. He walked into the ward holding flowers with a meteorite bullet hidden in his sleeve. The target person, Wu Yu, was writing on the impracticability of working fluid propulsion with trembling hands, and the ink stains on the pages were like an elegy for human civilization. 1. The technical poetics of the murder scene. Target selection. 3 old experts who insisted on chemical rockets, symbolizing the stubborn shackles of the old technical route. Weapon metaphor. Meteorite bullets. A gift from the universe becomes a tool for killing gods. Time trick. Choose to start on the eve of the spacecraft test launch so that death becomes the countdown to a new era. 2. Logical solo dance in the moral abyss. In the nuclear submarine in Bohai Bay, Zhang Beihai confessed to his father's spirit in Morse code. This conversation is full of the tension of ancient Greek tragedy. "I have defiled the military emblem. No, you are wiping it. Will the future understand?" The future does not need to understand, it only needs to exist. 3. Natural selection. The dark departure of Noah's Ark. When the alarm of Forward 4 rang through the starship, Zhang Beihai's fingers hovered above the operating table for 0.3 seconds. This is the longest moment in human history. His eyes flashed before his eyes the old school bag sewn by his mother and the crooked embroidery for the rise of humanity. On it was now turning into the tail flames of 5 starships. 1. The ultimate practice of escapism. Psychological game. Playing the Blue Danube on the bridge using classical music to dispel the guilt of defection. Resource calculation. The ecological balls and gene banks hoarded in advance prove that he planned not only to escape, but also to restart civilization. Discourse reconstruction. Calling defection forward. Using verb replacement to complete moral absolution. 2. Existential epiphany in 4-dimensional fragments. When encountering the remains of the Lord of the Rings civilization, Zhang Beihai gazed at the 3-dimensional universe through the 4-dimensional eye. This moment deconstructed his lifelong belief. Dimension crushing. Humans are like ants in front of advanced civilizations, just like the Trisolarans looking at the Earth. Time amber. The sense of eternity in the 4-dimensional space contrasts the fragility of the fleeing fleet. The ultimate question. When the fire of civilization is swaying in the dark forest, is survival itself the highest morality? 4. The ultimate choice. Ending human childhood with 5 bullets. In the captain's room of the ultimate law, Zhang Beihai's gun muzzle swept over 4 comrades in turn. The surveillance video shows that his facial muscles did not tremble when he fired, as if he was executing the exercise instructions. But the forensic doctor later detected supercritical grip on the gun handle. That was physical evidence of soul-tearing. 1. The ethical explosion of the dark battle. Resource curse. The fuel of the two ships is only enough for one to reach the new galaxy, recreating the cannibalistic tragedy of the age of exploration. Preemptive strike. Taking the initiative to open fire is not cruel, but to avoid a more bloody melee. Metaphor of civilization. Only by completing the awakening of animal nature through fratricide can we cope with the survival competition on a cosmic scale. 2. Quantum entanglement of the deathly smile. At the moment of being shot and falling to the ground, the corners of Zhang Beihai's mouth rose 2.7 degrees. This micro-expression was interpreted as multiple possibilities. Relief. Finally unloading the heavy mission of 2 centuries. Relieved. Confirming that the later generations have inherited the consciousness of advancing by any means necessary. Mockery. Humans will eventually rely on the animal nature they hate to continue civilization. V. Spark plan. Resonance of deep-sea thinking and star ambition. In the cold and silent deep space, 0.12 light-years away from the solar system, the wreckage of natural selection is still drifting. The backup power supply of Zhang Beihai's freezer can still run for 900 years, and the last recording of his life is played in the cabin in a loop. There is no need for an epitaph here, just remember that we once crossed the darkness like a swarm of krill. 1. Civilization embryology of the escape fleet. Social structure. The ship's constitution stipulates that each generation must forget the history of the Earth to prevent homesickness from causing return. Technical route. Deliberately retain 20% of the mechanical operation interface to avoid AI dependence. Moral reshaping. Set the dark battle day as the awakening day to temper the will to survive with a sense of shame. 2. The cosmic echo of Zhang Beihaiism. When Cheng Xian escaped from the two-dimensionalization on a curvature spacecraft, the star map showed that the nearest supply station was the Beihai 1 interstellar city. This fateful echo reveals escape is the real wall-facing plan. Bestiality is more suitable for the dark forest than human nature. The rational madness of one person may be closer to the truth than the collective wisdom of tens of millions of people. Epilogue. Star map under the ice lake. In the 67th year of the Shelter era, a historian discovered a German submarine from World War II in the Greenland ice core. The star map on the blackboard in the cabin is strikingly similar to the route of the natural selection. In the German text next to it reads, "To colleagues 200 years later, both the deep sea and deep space need gamblers." Zhang Beihai's story tells us, a true strategist must be a defeatist because the illusion of victory is the first killer of civilization. At the moment of life and death, those who survive may not necessarily be moral role models, but they must be the most sober group of cognition. 1. The theological meaning of the tombstone plan. The two-dimensionalization of Van Gogh's Starry Night, using art to eternally fight against dimensionality reduction attacks. The radiation resistance of the stone carvings of the Book of Songs, implying that language is more immortal than matter. Luo Ji's final message. Carve the words on the stone. This is a tragic return to the survival mode of primitive civilization. 2. The immortality of thought in the two-dimensional solar system. When the death-white light of the two-dimensional foil engulfed Pluto, Luo Ji did not start the curvature spacecraft. This choice completes his spiritual cycle. Symmetry with Yi Wenjie. The former sends a signal to the universe to start the disaster, and the latter guards the tombstone at the end of the disaster. The ultimate response to Zhuang Yan. Using the destruction of human civilization to prove that he has never betrayed the idealized beauty. The ultimate annotation of the dark forest. Only by acknowledging the darkness can the glimmer of light show its meaning. Epilogue. The eternal fable of hunters, deer, and forests. In the 647th microcosm at the end of time, the zeroer may include such a civilization file. Earth civilization once gave birth to a madman who walked through the arsenal with a candle in his hand. He neither ignited the ammunition nor let the candle go out, but used melted wax to cast the gun into a candlestick. Luo Ji's story tells us, the real deterrence is not the display of force but the precise grasp of the aesthetics of destruction. In the dark forest, the one who survives to the end is not necessarily the strongest civilization, but the hunter who understands silence the most. Those saviors who are scolded as tyrants often carve the deepest survival code for civilization on the blade of human nature and animal nature.